welcome to the Etoft21sports Show for October 18th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. You can find my work on Twitter at Etoft21 or on Instagram at Etoft21sports_. Phenomenal show lined up for you today. Really looking forward to this one. Blackjack Fletcher from BTV. He's going to be coming on. Him and I are going to talk about week 6 in the NFL, and we're going to also be telling you what bets to lock in for week 7. And as always, Gino's going to be stopping by. Gino's going to be telling you his horse racing bet of the day at Keeneland. He's got a huge price. Let's see what Gino's got cooking for us tomorrow.
Oh, we've got our best bet for this week. We have a big price at Keeneland on Wednesday. I'm always diving in for my prep, for my research, how I get to my analysis and get to my conclusion is by using the daily racing form and the past performances. So if you ever need some help when you're handicapping, when you're looking at the races, head to drf.com. I'm looking at the 6th race at Keeneland on Wednesday. I'm looking at the number 12, Wicked Street, who's 20-1 on the morning line. Now, if you'll notice, his debut race, he was on the turf at Saratoga. It was on a good track. Didn't run all that poorly. Drew the rail, actually, that day. Came back in the second career start at Churchill. Was only 2-1. Got bet that day. Stretched out. It was the first time on the dirt. It was the first time going long. And Wicked Secret was taken back to 5th or 6th. And it was a small field. It was the last sort of in-between horses. Down on the inside, he really didn't have anywhere to go. He was traveling well, but he had to wait. And he had to kind of shift his way out to the outside. He's in about the 7th or 8th path. And the horse to the inside of him kept drifting out. So every time Wicked Secret was trying to angle around, this horse would come out a little bit farther. It was this deceiving trouble. It was like he kept playing cat and mouse with him all the way through. I think there's more with this 12 Wicked Secret. And if you look at the way this race shapes up, there looks like there's pretty good amount of speed in here. I'd imagine, a horse like the 11, Reeker Point, will be forwardly placed. The 10, Oh Gangster, showed speed. The 8, Presider, showed speed. We have the 6, who's your favorite, who was big speed in that career debut. So I'd imagine you're probably going to get a good amount of early pace in here. Maybe a couple other horses stretching out will be forwardly placed. It should set up well for Wicked Street. Second time dirt. Second time going long, coming off a sneaky good past performance, gets to the outside instead of having some of that trouble on the inside, and had a brutally wide trip last time out. I'm giving the 12 Wicked Secret a big shot. I'll play to win at anything over 10-1. Good luck this week on Wednesday with your play. Make sure to tune in every Tuesday night for Eric's show here to get some of the best info in sports.
Guys, make sure to give Gino a follow. Gino and I are live every Friday night on BTV's Campus Profits. We are also live on BTV's 4th and Inches Sunday morning at 11 a.m. I'm also on Gino's podcast every single Friday talking NFL or NBA. Make sure to give him a follow at It's Me, Gino B on Twitter. Now, without further ado, and I have to say I am really looking forward to this, talking some NFL with this man, Mr. Blackjack Fletcher. Let's welcome you to the show, my man. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. I'm glad to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Really, really looking forward to this. We already have the NBA season is starting.
Yeah.
My boy Bobby's asking about NBA futures. Do you have any? I have a couple. Do you have any NBA futures you locked in?
Eric, I can't remember an NBA season that I thought was this wide open. You look at the teams that, like the Warriors obviously coming back fully healthy, but I don't know. That team, it feels like they're getting older now, and it feels like teams are starting to catch up to them. I know the Grizzlies are a trendy pick. The one I kind of like is the Nuggets. I kind of like the Denver Nuggets. Finally healthy again. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. back. Jokic has been as good as anybody. I think that Western Conference is there for the taking. I kind of like Denver.
Great minds think alike. One of the futures I locked in was Malone Coach of the Year at 14-1.
Yeah, that's a great price on him.
Yeah, because I figure like they're going to be the only team that really kind of like, how can I say this, doesn't rest players.
Right.
Yeah.
Denver's got something to prove here with the way they've played in the last few years. Would it shock anyone if Denver wins 60 games? No. I wouldn't be stunned.
Not at all. Not at all. You mentioned the Grizzlies. The one I took that I feel is kind of grimy is I took the Grizzlies not to make the playoffs at plus.
I don't hate it. Listen, I understand how good Ja Morant is. Watching him play, he is one of the most entertaining players in the entirety of the NBA. I have concerns, though. Number one, his style of play is not geared towards longevity. He's not a huge guy. He's not LeBron James built like a linebacker out there. I mean, he gets knocked around so much with the way he plays. And the other thing that troubles me with Memphis is I love that supporting cast. It's a real ensemble crew. I still don't think they have a true Robin to his Batman. Like, I don't know that there is one guy you can depend on night in and night out. Some days it's going to be, Desmond Bain. Some days it's going to be Jackson. Some days it's going to be different guys. But I don't know that they have that true second star on that team.
Now, Jackson's out too. We don't know how long he's going to be out.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I like it. I did a couple, so I'll just game them off. I took the Hornets under 33, ball under 33.5, balls out. There's this kid from France. I think everyone's going to be tanking for him.
I mean, Wembanyama, it looks like a truly transcendent prospect. And I think what you're talking about with Charlotte is going to apply to a lot of teams. I think if you get out to a slow start here, you're going to give a real long look at just tanking this thing, right? Because it's not going to be hard to get ownership on board. You've got two with Scoot Henderson, two incredibly highly rated prospects at the top of this draft. If you're not going to do anything this year, you might as well start losing some games.
And I think it starts because Ball's out for an undisclosed time. Bridges is in jail. They just had Boatwright get arrested for a DUI. So I think this team could shut it down. But we're not here to talk about NBA. We're here to talk some NFL. How this works for the first time is we each are going to give a takeaway. But before we dump into this, an interesting question from Raj. I'm alive in my Survivor contest. Should I just keep fading the Panthers until I can't do it anymore?
I mean, the Panthers are one of the few reliably bad teams we have in the NFL this year, right? I mean, We've seen the teams that we used to count on for that in years past. The Jets, the Giants, I mean, they've turned it around a little bit. The Jaguars are playing competitive football. Panthers just aren't competitive. I mean, they're just not in any game. So, yeah, I mean, ride it as long as you can.
All right, so what is your first takeaway from Week 6?
Yeah, I mean, my first takeaway is the takeaway I've had for the last couple of weeks, and it's the coaching situation in Denver is untenable. I'm not a big fan of quick hooks with coaches, and I think guys need time sometimes. But what's going on out there is, I mean, I can't remember seeing it in recent history. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, the job just seems too big for him. And Russell Wilson's got his problems too, and I'm not. This doesn't absolve Russell Wilson, but they're not putting him in a position to be successful. And when you've got a roster that has that much talent on offense and a defense that, I mean, Eric, think about it. They have gone 2 full games without giving up more than 1 touchdown total, and they've lost both of them. That defense is outstanding. They have playmakers. They're not doing what they need to do to be successful with Russell Wilson. If you think back to those years in Seattle, Russell Wilson was successful in the shotgun, rolling out, and buying time to make plays. I've seen him under center more than I've ever seen him in his career. He's taking 3 and 5 step drops and getting the ball smacked back in his face. This is atrocious. I mean, after week 1, Nathaniel Hackett had to hire a time management coach to tell him when to call timeout. That's kind of your job. Like, if I was the GM, if I'm George Payton, and you come to me and say, I'm going to hire a time management coach, I'm looking at him like he's got 2 heads. Like, I don't understand this. This is a mess in Denver, and it's not going to get better. And the worst part of it is it feels like the guys on this team are nearly, if not in, open revolt. You saw it with KJ Hamler's reaction in the Indy game to the interception. You saw Melvin Gordon and Jerry Jeudy on the sidelines in the last game. I don't know how long this can go on without this just completely blowing up. And you've got $250 million invested in Russell Wilson. He ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. The game against the Texans, there was not once, not twice, but 3 times they didn't have enough people on the field for a punt return. One time they didn't have a punt returner back there. And that same situation happened last night. I'm loving my under 10 and them not to make the playoff bet right now.
It's utterly inexcusable what's going on with that team. I don't know how you can allow it to continue much longer. I mean, if they haven't already been on the phone with Sean Payton, they're doing it wrong. I mean, I don't know what to do here. Like that situation is as bad as I've ever seen one with a guy running a team. It also makes me think, like, just how good is Aaron Rodgers that he won 2 MVPs with this guy as his OC.
So saw somewhere that the Hackett system is notorious hard to install, usually takes 8 to 9 weeks, can be a year. Reason Aaron stayed in Green Bay. If that's the case, why hire the guy in the first place in the win now move?
You're right about that. Why hire him? But the second thing is, I am so tired of hearing NFL coaches, particularly ones who haven't won a damn thing, talk about their system. You've got to tailor your system to the talent you have around you. If you don't do that, you're not being an efficient manager of a football team. And that's your job, is to manage these players and put them in the best position to be successful. If you are going to stubbornly cling to it's my way or it's no way, you're not doing it right. Russell Wilson clearly is not comfortable here. It's not working in any way. I don't care what you think. He's a weird guy, right? We all agree he's a weird guy.
Weird dude.
But he's got more talent than this, man.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson going 3 for 15 and a half never happens.
And they have that kid Albert O in the doghouse, not in the field. Melvin Gordon, something's going on there. It's just a train wreck. I mean, they obviously made the wrong hire and they need to move on because that window, like you said, is closing. My first takeaway, and you mentioned coaching, you mentioned putting players in a position to succeed. Arthur Smith is the coach of the year in my eyes. What he's doing with the Falcons is absolutely insane. I was looking at the quarterback rankings this year. In standard dropbacks, there are only 31 quarterbacks ranked. Taking a deeper dive, that's because Marcus Mariota hasn't had enough standard drop back passes to qualify. All his passes are RPO. You know what I mean? But they're RPO play action passes. He's putting Marcus Mariota in a position to succeed. As a coach, that's what you're supposed to do. And I think he is the best play caller in the NFL because I think he understands when to play fast to get the extra possession before the half. He knows when to play slow, and he knows, when to play kind of just normal, moderate pace. I think he gets it more than anyone gives him credit to. And if he had the talent that Andy Reid has or that Shanahan has, he's winning a ship. I think Atlanta is trending insanely in the right direction. And in a year, maybe 2, we need to look to get invested in some futures with him.
I think you're right about what he's doing. And the examples of it, look at the way they're winning games, right? I mean, look at that San Francisco game. You go back and look at the box score, and you're like, how did this team win this football game? Like, none of these numbers make sense for a win, but they did everything they needed to get it. And you talk about Mariota, right? This team went out and invested major draft capital in Kyle Pitts. I still think Kyle Pitts is a really good player, but he's not having a lot of success because, like you said, Mariota's not dropping back and throwing the ball. Some teams would be stubborn about it, so we got to get the ball to Pitts. They are doing what's working, and they are a competitive team. They're doing it now without Cordero Patterson, which I can't believe I'm saying he's such a big component, but he is. And last year, you talk about Arthur Smith. Look at the way he used Cordero Patterson. This guy's been in the league for a long time. Nobody ever found a way to get this kind of production out of him.
Matt has a question. Does Christian McCaffrey get traded?
He should. The Panthers have no reason to hang on to him. The problem is he makes a lot of money and they want a lot. I mean, I heard they wanted 2 1s.
I don't know. Like with the way they were playing, they were like auditioning him because he got so many touches on Sunday.
Yes,
I mean, it's insane.
Eric, it makes 0 sense to hold on to him. They are in a full teardown at this point. Christian McCaffrey's not that young anymore. He's been banged up and he makes too much money. Like you have to move him. But in the NFL, I feel like we just don't see these trades that often.
Misty says, what up? Takeaway 2. What do you got?
Yeah, so for my second one, I feel like nobody's really talking about the Minnesota Vikings. And I want to give them a little shine because They're 5-1, and they're playing really good football in an NFC that, in my mind, is completely wide open. Like the Buccaneers they have problems there, and I don't know that they're getting fixed. The Rams offensively are struggling. The 49ers, I mean, listen, it's a talented roster, but the 49ers, I can't see it. I can't see them coming out of that conference. Minnesota is building something here, particularly offensively with Cousins, with an offensive coach. They have great weapons offensively. If that defense can be league average, Minnesota has a chance to come out of here. I mean, let's be honest, Eric. After Philadelphia, who is a legitimate contender to come out of that conference?
Nobody. Like, absolutely nobody.
Minnesota could fill that void.
They could easily. And when we were talking the other day, and you asked how I felt about Dan Campbell. This is my issue with Dan Campbell. I look at what the kid's doing down in Miami. I'm spacing on his name. McDaniel. Yeah. I'm looking at what O'Connell's doing up in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. They're winning games they shouldn't win.
Yep.
There's been games Detroit should win.
Yeah.
And they're not winning. And that's my issue with Dan Campbell. So yeah. I agree 100% with what you're saying, that they're winning games they didn't win last year. And that's props, because anything can happen in a football game.
They're playing more consistent football. Like, even with Cousins, we haven't seen one of those Kirk Cousins games yet. Now, it may be coming, but he's been more steady than he's been in years past. You know, we don't have quite the highs and the lows. It's been more even keeled. And I think that Kevin O'Connell deserves a lot of credit for it. The Vikings are right there. I mean, like I said, Green Bay's 3-3. They're 5-1. They've already got a win over the Packers. And you know how important it is now to have that 1 seed. They're certainly in play for it, because even though Philly's undefeated, Philly's got a much tougher division than Minnesota does.
I'm sitting in a 30-1 future with the Eagles, and I'm extremely tight about it. Sterling asked a question. Which struggling preseason Super Bowl contender do you have the most faith that will pick it up? Packers, Rams, or Bucks?
I mean, I'm still going to say Tampa because Tom Brady's there, but it's getting harder and harder each week, because I'm the biggest Tom Brady apologist you'll find. I think he's the greatest professional athlete I've ever seen. But this doesn't make a lot of sense to me, what's going on in Tampa. Like last year, they had excuses because the defense was banged up from week 1 through the playoffs. This year, the defense is healthy, and their offense just cannot score touchdowns. And listen, the only one missing is Julio Jones. I mean, Evans is out there. Godwin's out there. I don't know what is going on in Tampa that can be fixed. And you're seeing stuff out of them that you just don't see from a Tom Brady team, whether it was New England or Tampa. There was a point in the game against Pittsburgh where, you know, they're in Pittsburgh's territory, and it's 3rd and 10, and Brady's throwing a 6-yard out. And it's like, well, Tom Brady doesn't do that. You know, like what is the offensive line hasn't been great, but I mean, they also haven't been like Bengals bad. I mean, I don't know what's going on in Tampa. I will still say that I think they're the one that can fix it, because I trust Tom Brady to do that.
Yeah. He's done it so much. You have to. My next takeaway, I think the Texans, I think they made the best move so far this season, firing Jack Esterby. This guy, you look at his career, where it's happened everywhere he's been. He's a con artist. He buddied up to Cal McNair after McNair's dad passed away. Esterby became vice president of the football operations. No history in football. It's just hiring someone off the road. No idea what they're doing. He's the reason Hopkins got traded. Before this whole Watson legal situation happened, Watson demanded a trade because of him. He ran the Texans into the ground, and now that he's gone, they can start building up the franchise. The only issue is Carolina Panthers are talking to him. So if Carolina brings him back, you know what I mean? They're done. So
what has he done in Houston to warrant an interview at this point? I mean, if you sit back and think about where the Texans were, I mean, the Bill O'Brien days were the glory days at this point. I mean, think about, you know, they were consistently a playoff team. They were a team that was always competitive at the least. And like you said, he ran off Hopkins, J.J. Watt. The Deshaun Watson stuff happened on his watch, and I think it's come out now that they at least knew some of what was going on and didn't do a damn thing about it. I mean, everything there has just been a disaster.
It's been a train wreck. And Misty brings up a great point. He's getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably a good amount of money. What is your third takeaway of the week?
My third takeaway is about the New York Giants. Like we've talked about the Vikings and the Falcons. I'm so pleasantly surprised with what Brian Daboll's gotten out of that football team. I mean, he's won 2 games where Saquon Barkley took snaps at quarterback. And they're beating teams in a way that is repeatable in my estimation. Like that Ravens game is a perfect example of, you were talking about winning games you're not necessarily supposed to win. The Giants trailed that entire game. The fourth quarter, they're down by 10, and they just didn't stop. They found a way to get there and to get a win out of it. This team's sitting at 5-1, man. I mean, they have an amazing shot to make the playoffs. And this is with Daniel Jones at quarterback, which I think most people would say is not the long-term answer there.
Yeah, he's not good. And God, I heard one of the Long brothers say this when I was thumbing through Twitter. He's kind of turned him into the Titans.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what I mean? Just kind of like, you got the running game. You got kind of this quarterback that was outcasted, a solid defense. My third takeaway is this, and I'm going to butcher this name. Blackjack, you may not know about this. I can rattle off numbers, insane numbers. I can't pronounce names or shit. I'll be the first one to say it. Follow Runzo Fatusi is the best player that we've never heard of. He's an interior lineman for the Jags. When he's playing, he eats up space and he allows the pass rush lanes to happen. Jaguars were up 14-0 against the Eagles. What happened? He goes down. Boom. Game completely flipped. Against the Colts, they were generating 0 pass rush, and Matt Ryan was looking like the old Matt Ryan.
Yep.
He opens up lanes for Allen and Walker to get home. Their pressure rating's non-existent when he's on the field. This is a key injury for the Jaguars, and I kind of think we need to keep fading him if he can't play just because of how important he is to what they do on the defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because, like you said, I kind of think of him as almost like a Vita Vea type guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is your take, speaking of the Jaguars, on Trevor Lawrence? Because, I mean, we remember him coming out of college, and people talked about him in the same breath as like an Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning type prospect. He's been better, but it's still not great.
My takeaway with this is I look at it. I've always said if I see a quarterback making the same mistakes year 1 to year 2, he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
and he'll never get it. He's not making the same mistakes, but I feel like the first year was a complete wash because he wasn't getting any coaching. You look at when they got in the 20 inside the red zone, 1 read run. So he wasn't able to process the field in a small amount. I think now with Peterson, he actually has coaching. So we kind of have to see what he is next year. And I'm treating this like his true rookie.
Yeah, you treat it like a rookie season. Yeah.
So, but Chris is asking, I need some help. I need to make some money this weekend. What games to bet? And this is what we're here for. We're here to make some money.
That's it, man.
All right, man. We're here. We're each going to give out our 3 bets we're looking to lock in. It's early in the week. Some of these lines may move. So, if we're going to lock in them now, we'll tell you. I have a couple of them. I'm going to sit back and wait. Blackjack, what is your first bet?
I mean, my first one is probably the one I like the best, and it's the New York Giants +3 over the Jaguars. This line to me is really kind of nonsensical in the movement. It opened at 1.5. It's at 3 right now. I mean, there's nothing to dislike about what the New York Giants are doing. You talked about the absence, the injury with the Jaguars. The Jaguars are playing better. They're competitive, but they're still not consistent enough. This Giants team is the definition of consistency. You know what you're going to get every single week out of them. I think they win this game outright, but you're going to give me a full field goal here? I'm taking the Giants all day.
Yeah, and especially if my boy, I'm not even going to pronounce his name, if he doesn't play, you know what I mean? Like, that's the space eater to get to Jones and to disrupt Barkley. I like that play a lot. My first bet, we're starting to see some 7.5 pop before we start recording. I think when Dak is announced in, this is going to go up to maybe even 9. I'm taking the Lions. The Eagles are one of the most physical teams in the NFL, and I started looking at this season and the last 2 seasons. Teams that have played them the following week are 32% ATS. So it's kind of like when teams played Bama back in the day. They're just so physically beat up in the trenches that they didn't have enough for the next week. If we just look at this season and last season, it drops down to 30% ATS. As a home favorite, the Cowboys, McCarthy, 43% ATS. The one weakness for the Cowboys defense, the running game. Lions are 5th DVOA at running. They're getting DeAndre Swift back. Brown is going to be back. He's healthy. They're getting their playmakers back. And this is a trend that absolutely blew my mind. Jared Goff playing indoors, 72% ATS, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Plus, I think the timing, there's going to be some timing issues with the Cowboys, with that coming back of a long extended rest. And even if they get down, with them winning with Cooper, I could see him pressing a little bit. I think this is a sneaky spot to get over a touchdown with the Lions. So I like the Lions this week for sure.
Listen, I will take the Lions catching a touchdown or more against pretty much anybody in the NFL, but this is a perfect spot to do it. Like that New England game happening last week was the best thing that could have happened for your betting purposes this week. The Lions aren't that team. That was a fluke. You can throw it out. The Lions backdoor cover more games than anybody in the NFL. If you're giving me a touchdown with this team, more often than not, they're going to get it within that number. I'm with you. I think it's a great play.
And that Packers game was outdoors. This one's indoors down south in Arlington. So bet number 2. What you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to take Kansas City here -3 against San Francisco. The Chiefs are coming off a loss here, which really is probably all I need. But you look at the way this Kansas City offense plays and how versatile they are, how they can use so many different people in so many different ways. San Francisco has a great defense. There's no question about it. But I don't think they have enough to defend all of this. And I really struggle with the idea that the 49ers are going to be able to score enough to make this a really tight game. I don't think they're going to get blown out, but if I've got to lay a field goal or less with Kansas City, I'm going to take it here.
And you mentioned their defense. Bosa's going to be out. Armstead's going to be out.
Be out. You've got to think that the Chiefs are coming into this one. You know, that Buffalo game, I know that it mattered more to Buffalo than Kansas City in all likelihood. That's still, that's the team, right? Like they both know that this is where this is going to go at some point, barring something totally unforeseen. I think Kansas City comes out looking to take out some frustration.
Now, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, I'm a little bit into the conspiracy stuff. Okay. So this was my big conspiracy going into this season. The last 4 years, Eric Bieniemy has had play calling duties, and he had them taken away. They brought in Nagy.
Mm-hmm.
Could you see a world where Nagy replaces Bieniemy as the play caller?
I mean, yeah, I think I could, because if you sit back and think about it, Andy Reid has worked with Nagy for a long time. I mean, he's comfortable with him. And I don't think there's a problem with the play calling with Kansas City, and I don't think Bieniemy was an issue, but there is clearly something there, right? Like, why hasn't he gotten a head job? And I mean, I know people will bring up the racial issues, but I mean, there's 8 black coaches in the NFL at this point. It's a little strange that Eric Bieniemy hasn't.
It is really weird that he hasn't got one.
Right? I mean, I'm not saying there can't be a racial component to this, but other African-American coaches are getting jobs and he's not. Mm-hmm. And just being with Andy Reid should be enough to overcome that for somebody. So it's a little strange to me. Yeah, I could see Matt Nagy taking over the play calling at some point. I mean, again, there's a comfort level with him and Andy Reid.
Now, the bet that we've just been killing here, and everyone talks about the Falcons being a perfect against the ATS, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what bet is also perfect going into this week?
No. Who is it?
Running backs going over their receiving prop against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
So they give up the most receiving yards to opposing running backs. But here's my question. Jeff Wilson Jr., Kevin Coleman? Do I go to Kyle Juszczyk? I mean, do I look at the Debo? You know what I mean? Because the 49ers, I feel like this is a game where we can take advantage of it because the 49ers, it's just an open, you know what I mean? It's just what's the word?
I do.
And
They're very multiple in the way that they approach their offense. And I've just got a bad taste in my mouth because Jeff Wilson gave me all of a half a fantasy point last week. So that was amazing. So I'm probably not going to put money on any over for Jeff Wilson right now.
I mean, I kind of feel like Kyle Juszczyk's going to be at like 7.5, maybe go him. You know what I mean? Like case in point, Devin Singletary, his opened up at 17.5 last week. 17.5. Josh Jacobs, his overhit in the second quarter. Fournette's overhit on his first pass of the game. I just kind of feel this is kind of a trend that the mainstream bettors, I don't want to be mainstream, like the people on Twitter, haven't caught on to yet. My second bet, I'm going to the well, dude. And you and I both hate the team. I'm going to the Denver Broncos. The lines dropped all the way. Well, but this is my reasoning though. Lines dropped all the way down to 1. Okay. Obviously, this has to do with the MRI from Wilson. But this is more of a fade against the Jets because I feel this is the ultimate, highest they're going to be. You look at it last week, they played against the Packers. I'll say it. If you go to London and don't take a bye, I feel you're an idiot. And I feel Matt's an idiot for not taking the bye. Packers are terrible against the run. Hall ran all over him. Week 5, they played the Finns. Tua was out. Teddy got hurt on basically the first play of the game. Skylar Thompson, who's not been playing, came in, and the Finns had a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter. Sanders pushed the field goal wide, and then the wheels fell off. The week before, they played the Steelers. No Watt. Pickett replaced Trubisky. Pickett's coming in with no practice. It's not like these wins have been impressive. Now, this is another thing. Defensively, the Packers were 28th DVOA when they played.
Yeah.
Finns 29th DVOA. Steelers 22nd DVOA. Denver is 2 DVOA in defense. Denver has a million issues, but you mentioned it. Defense ain't legit. Okay, and I think they're going to be able to get Wilson to rush through his progressions, make him make some careless mistakes. And obviously speaking, who's the backup? Brett Ripken? I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine betting Brett Ripken. I'll be on the Broncos here, but I'm just going to wait because if Wilson doesn't play, what does this get to 3?
Probably. And I agree with you that the Jets are overvalued here. They have had fortunate circumstances. Now, to their credit, they've taken advantage of it when in years past they wouldn't have. But I don't put them and the Giants in the same category because the Jets, their offense is still very one-dimensional. Zach Wilson hasn't shown enough here. And like you said, I mean, listen, Breece Hall, I'm a fan. He ain't going for 120 yards against this Broncos defense. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, no. Not at all. No way.
Tell you what, they hung 39.5 on the board. I still like the under.
Oh, yeah. I think this is going to be a defensive battle just because neither one of these defenses are that good. I have a funny story to tell you, though, about Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh, and it kind of ties back to Brian Kelly. How do you feel about Brian Kelly real quick?
I mean, he killed a kid at Notre Dame, so, there's that.
So he was a coach at CMU, and Florin and Salah, whatever his name is, worked under him. They got invited to his Christmas party. These guys showed up thinking that they were invited to their Christmas party. Brian Kelly had them be the valet.
Are you kidding me?
No, Brian Kelly had them be the valet.
What an asshole.
I mean, he had them be a valet. So it's mind-boggling to me that you would do that. But yeah, I always found that hysterical. Last bet, and this is the one I absolutely love.
Yeah, I'm going to take Cleveland plus 6.5 over the Ravens here. If you trust the Baltimore Ravens at this point, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this team has blown leads every week. Offensively, they are a mess right now. I mean, they just went and signed Deshaun Jackson off the street because it's Devin Duvernay and nothing else. The defense is giving up these fourth quarter touchdowns every single week. I mean, Eric, you sit back and look at the leads this team has blown. It is unfathomable that this has happened through 6 weeks. If this was a whole season, it would be a lot. I mean, they blew a 20-point lead to Buffalo, a 17-point fourth quarter lead to Miami, a 10-point fourth quarter lead to the Giants in 3 of the last 4 weeks. You're going to ask me to lay 6.5 with them to Cleveland? Not going to happen. Taking the Browns.
Yeah, they have the best running back in the green.
Yep.
It's Nick Chubb. And I wanted to ask you this question because, Deshaun Watson, he's a POS in my eyes, but he's coming right around back. They are sitting, I'm pulling it up right now, at 80-1 to win the Super Bowl and plus 425 just to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you got to take that 425 all day long. Because again, when you start really parsing the AFC, right? Like Buffalo is in all likelihood your winner in the AFC East. The AFC South is going to be one team, whoever wins it's in, the rest of them aren't making the playoffs. The West, Kansas City and the Chargers probably both make the playoffs. You've got 2 wild card spots left in this conference that are up for grabs. And Cleveland is not out of the division race by any stretch. I think you're going to get 2 playoff teams out of the AFC North. And, I mean, maybe Miami can turn it around. Maybe they get in. If not, you might get 3 out of the North. You've got to like Cleveland to do that because, first of all, Jacoby Brissett is fine at keeping things steady. He won't be great, but he'll be fine. And, yeah, Deshaun Watson will be back with 7 games to play. I don't know how you can look at that and say, yeah, this team, doesn't have a shot. Plus 425 is pretty good.
I think it's a great price, and I think it's definitely worth a gamble. My last bet, and I always make my last bet a player prop. I'm going with B-Rob, Brian Robinson over rushing yards. The Packers are 32 DVOA defending the rush. Lead running backs versus the Packers: Hall, $116, Barkley 70, Damian Harris 86, Fournette 35, Montgomery $112, Cook 90. Their lead backs are averaging 73 yards on the ground. Robinson took over the Commanders' backfields with a 61% carry share. Also, Carson Wentz is out, so they're going to lean on the running game.
I think so.
Even more. And you want to hear something funny? This line was at 6. Carson Wentz went out. Can you guess what the line is right now?
It had to drop. It
went to 4.5.
I mean, listen, I'm a Taylor Heineke fan. All right. Carson Wentz. I've talked to so many people about Carson Wentz. It's so funny to me how this guy was going to win an MVP award. I mean, was the guy that year. Gets injured, comes back, and just a shell of himself. I mean, you thought it would, like the Frank Reich thing in Indy felt right? Like that was his OC in Philly. Frank Reich will fix him up. He's good with quarterbacks. Frank Reich cut bait after 1 year. Like, how bad did it have to be in the building and on the practice field for Frank Reich to be like, nope, I'll take 37-year-old Matt Ryan?
So let me ask you this, though. I kind of feel like that Denver game showed why they got Matt Ryan, because they played like absolute dog shits. And Ryan looked absolutely terrible. But son of a gun, that old bastard put him in a position to win, and they won.
Listen, he had 2 drives, one at the end of the fourth quarter and one in overtime. That was the only time during that game that either team was able to move the ball with any consistency. And yes, I think people give Matt Ryan a little too much shit, for my opinion. I think he's better than what people give him credit for. But for Carson Wentz to be that bad, like Frank Reich to throw his hands up after 1 season and just be like, we're done. It had to be unbelievably bad in that building. And then Washington, of course, Washington is the team that says, hey, you want some draft picks?
It blows my mind. No idea what the Commanders are doing. Matt asks a question. Seahawks plus 800 to make the playoffs.
I like it. We talked about the NFC before. The NFC is a mess. It is a total mess. Like, I understand the Cowboys and Giants have good records and, right now slot in as playoff teams. But I don't know what's going to happen with either one of them, particularly the Giants. I mean, would it shock any of us if the Giants really fell off? I don't think so. Mm-mm. Seattle is playing consistent football. Geno Smith, credit to Geno Smith. And I think everything going on in Denver and then what you see out of Geno Smith, it makes you appreciate Pete Carroll a lot more, right? I mean, the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson and upgraded a quarterback. I don't know.
But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Hackett. Good coach and Arthur Smith. Good coaches put players in a position to succeed.
Yep.
Carroll, that's all he's doing. He's putting players in a position to succeed. My one I was thinking about, and I'm probably going to hear it from you, so I'm mentally preparing myself. I'm kind of interested in the Cardinals, just because. No, here's my thought process. Okay, I don't think Seattle can maintain.
Probably, You're probably right.
As much as everyone talks about the Rams like trading for whoever, having OBJ coming back, he's not playing offensive line. And Noteboom is out. He was their left tackle that came in to play Whitworth. He's out for the year. So now you have a third string left tackle. The 49ers, Trent Williams is out. His backup is out. Bosa, everyone's out. It just kind of seems to me by default, they're the healthiest team in the division.
Well, and the thing with the Cardinals, and this is why you won't hear it from me on this, is Hopkins hasn't played, right? When you get DeAndre Hopkins back and they added Marquise Brown in the offseason, it changes that offense in such a measurable way. DeAndre Hopkins is I mean, if he's not the best receiver in football, he's certainly top 5, and he changes that offense for Kyler Murray in a big way. And now you add Marquise Brown to that. My issue with the Cardinals is their defense is really not good. But again, we talked about this before. The NFC to me is so wide open that, I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to go on a run at some point. There's too much talent there for them not to.
I said, I'm trying to pull this up. I'm sorry. I said this last week because they played Carroll. Like, it's just astronomical. Kingsbury is like 40% ATS against a coach that has won a Super Bowl.
I mean, listen, I have made my thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury very clear. I think he's an idiot. I don't think he is the guy who is going to take you where you want to go. I think he's okay offensively, but I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is on the level of top head coaches in this league. And that stat bears it out. When he plays top coaches, he gets his ass kicked.
Would you be more comfortable playing the Cards at over 10-1 to win the West or 6-1 just to make the playoffs?
I think I'd take him to win the West at this point. I mean, 10-1 to do that. That division is completely up for grabs. Like, I don't – if Seattle won the division, I'd be stunned, right? Like, it would shock me if they won the division. The 49ers, I'm not a buyer on. The Rams should be better than this, but like you said, that left tackle spot is such a problem for them. I mean, Odell Beckham's not fixing that. Odell Beckham played great in the first half of the Super Bowl, and he was good for them last year, but he's coming off now a significant injury. I don't know what that's going to be. The running game has not been very good. I mean, the NFC West is there for the taking. I mean, someone's got to step up and take it. Arizona, I'm not going to count Arizona out. I mean, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins coming back is such a big addition that it absolutely puts them in play. And at 10-1, I mean, they're not that far out of it.
Yeah, it's good value. Blackjack, this was a ton of fun. Love doing this. Hope to have you come on again whenever you are free. Guys, make sure to check him, Beho, Joe Madden, and oh my God, I'm spacing on the other guy. I'm so sorry.
Jermaine Wiggins. Jesus.
Jermaine Wiggins from the Patriots. They're live on BTV every Thursday, 7 p.m. They talk college football, they talk NFL football, and they tell you what bets to lock in for the Thursday night game. Make sure to give Blackjack a follow at Blackjack Fletch on Twitter.
Yeah, I will also talk about the best football in North America, the Canadian Football League, on that show. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, best team in the continent.
I mean, what they are doing is absolutely insane. Blackjack, thanks for coming on. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Thanks, brother.